So let's call to order at 5:10 p.m. Kathy, could you take minutes?
I'm sort of multitasking here. Jenny could do it? Can you do it?
Oh, Jenny is in travel at the moment. I can do it.
Okay.
Okay, so we're called to order at 5:10 p.m. First item of business up is the approval of the minutes of June 8th, 2021, which I had sent out to the group on Tuesday, I believe.
I wasn't at
Tuesday
that
or Wednesday.
meeting, so. I said I
You
wasn't
weren't at that one?
meeting, so I can't.
Okay.
I think I was, right?
Yes.
Okay, I move to approve.
Jenny, would you like to second? Jenny's traveling at the moment. Kathy, could you second?
Can I second something I know nothing about?
Yeah.
Sure, I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So then that brings us to the first item up on the agenda, and the one that I in particular wanted to meet with everyone today to discuss.
Second.
Okay. The one that I in particular wanted to meet with everyone to discuss, I will bring up the main information here on the screen that I had sent out.
Yeah, Eric, can I just
Yep.
jump in, because this came up once in a board meeting a few years ago, and whoops. Oh, there you are. I became very uncomfortable with the conversation not being an executive session. So I would lean on you to go ahead, but if it gets into anything individual, I don't think we should be discussing this way.
Agreed.
Okay.
No, that's spot on. For anything that goes into performance and compensation for a specific individual employee, we should definitely go to executive session
Right.
straight away. For this, which would be a discussion of compensation for salary groups, the Open Meetings Act is pretty specific that you can't go to executive session for that.
That's fine. I just wanted to be sure we didn't cross the line. Or we don't cross the
No,
line.
agreed. So jumping in at the start here, basically the what I have to lay out here in front of you is that we have a couple particular challenges that we're working through. Some of them are immediate challenges and some of them are kind of more of a slow boil, but they are all kind of coming together at a confluence point right now. So real quick, as we jump in here at the top, we have two categories of library staff that we're going to be really discussing and focusing on here this evening. The first are library associates, and they work between 20 and 29 hours per week. And generally, while they have a lot of desk time, they also tend to have a lot of paraprofessional responsibilities. So an example would be that they might, in addition to working at the desk, do interlibrary loan and be responsible for that. Whereas a library assistant would be someone that would work 19 hours or less, and they would be very much focused for virtually all of their time working at the desk. They wouldn't have much or any time that they would be anywhere else for other responsibilities.
So these are the people who check you in and out, check the books in and out?
Yes.
Yep.
Those would mostly be library assistants with a few library associates sprinkled in. And then usually the people at the other end of the desk, at the reference desk, are either associates or full-time staff. Okay. So.
Okay.
Okay. So looking at what our challenges are. Right now, the one that's an immediate challenge is staffing levels. We had 3 staff members who departed in August and September. 2 of the vacant positions are part-time, and we posted those pretty well straight away. They're desk positions. They're pretty straightforward. There's not a lot there to parse and analyze, and quickly realized that we were not getting a lot of interest. And in fact, after having those up for several weeks, casting as wide a net as we figured that we could, and that included physically at the library, on the library's social media, website, at a number of colleges in the area: Lake Forest College, College of Lake County, Northwestern, Trinity College. We got a hold of Carrie Spizzano, who's still our main connection to the Lake Bluff Moms Group on Facebook, and she shared the position there. We posted on the Reaching Across Illinois Library System board site. So we did pretty much everything that we could think of to get a nice broad sweep, broad posting, and we only got 5 applicants. And of those, we really only ended up with 1 that was qualified and hadn't already taken another position in the interim. And when I say qualified, I don't mean that they had, didn't have a college education or degree or anything like that. We actually, because it was such a small pool, we spoke to everyone that was in the pool. And for the folks that were deemed not to be a good fit or qualified for the position, it was, in talking to them, they did not seem like they would be good, reliable people to have in a forward-facing position at the library. There were, with some candidates, there were some significant communications issues. There were with others other issues that suggested that they would be potentially very unreliable in the position. So it was a disappointing run.
But you did fill 1 position.
But we were able to fill 1 position.
Okay, that's not bad.
But if we were to go out and we were to repost exactly as is, having gotten so little interest the first time, I am not overly optimistic as far as what response we would get. Part of the staffing level challenge does that we're still currently shorthanded and have been running shorthanded for longer than we're used to doing. When we have turnover, we're used to running a bit shorthanded, say for a month and a half. And we've been running a bit shorthanded now for longer than we usually do, just because it's been a bit more of a dig to really try and find candidates for these positions. And that ties into and these postings, as we've been working on them, have tied into some of the other staffing issues that have been kind of an ongoing concern that has been discussed at times over the past couple of years with the HR committee and with the board.
Hey, Eric, just quick question. Was there any cost involved in any of the postings?
No.
No, okay.
No. We've at times in the past made use of some of the online forums where you can post, but we've never gotten good results from them. when we've posted to Indeed or any of the other job sites, invariably what we've gotten is, that they'll push a lot of recommended resumes that they have on file to us, but they rarely actually lead to any sort of a connection.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to get a pretty wide posting without having to dip into that. So the two items that I have here that ended up, I think, kind of tying in with this are the staff pay, which is one that we've discussed in the past for all levels of staffing at the library, and looking at the comparative information which I had sent out for 2021, which I would note those are actually numbers reported in 2020, so they don't reflect the current job market. To wit, actually, there's a posting up right now that went up just this last week at the Highwood Public Library, looking for an assistant with a starting wage of $17.50. And they had just boosted themselves up to $11 an hour pre-pandemic. So that was kind of an eye-opener. I would
do they have the
say
same
to see that.
associate assistant breakdown that we
Yes.
do? Okay.
Yeah. There's a little bit of variability in some libraries as to what they'll call those, but the terms are pretty common, and that breakout as far as rule of thumb is very common.
Okay.
That's pretty much the standard as far as how that breaks out.
Okay.
So and then of course the job market is very hot right now, and I think we're very much feeling that and feeling the challenge of at present attempting to hire when we've got positions that we're still posting at below $15. I think with the confluence of events, the very hot job market combined with the ongoing boosting up year by year to that $15 minimum wage, that what I am hearing from other organizations, other libraries, as well as talking to other administrators in the village, is that it's a real challenge to try and fill anything posted under that.
Well, it's a nationwide problem at any profession at any level right now.
Yeah.
There's mass resignations and people aren't taking new jobs.
We're having the same
Yes.
problem at the university. We're not getting, we've got 3 or 4 open positions in advancement, and we're not getting anything.
Yeah. So we have a number of challenges, and some longer term, some that are current, and they are all feeding together into a current challenging situation where we are finding ourselves not as readily able to fill positions as we have been in the past. Generally, libraries have a great brand. We're great places to work.
Yeah.
And we don't struggle to find folks that are interested in coming in. So looking at all of this, I did pull together a recommendation as to how I think we can move forward in a manner that will address the long-term issues that we've highlighted here, and then will, in a way that will be helpful to handling the current challenge that we're working with in terms of filling these positions. So that would be taking a look at getting us bootstrapped up to where we are looking to move the library assistant and associate positions. Where we have to get them to is that we want to move the library assistants from a $12 starting wage to a $15 starting wage. That one has to happen in the next 3 years pretty definitely if we're going to stay legally compliant. At the same time, our library associates, who have much more responsibility, have a starting wage of $14. That at least has to go to 15, and I would strongly recommend that that goes beyond. As a good rule of thumb, it would not be a good idea to leave a position with significantly more responsibility with the same starting wage as the assistants. So I've been working us towards, moving that up at the same time and getting that to $17 an hour for a starting wage. So I would recommend that we increase those starting wages and then also make that increase effective for current assistants and associates to those minimum wages, and then add on a per year bonus reflecting seniority within the organization.
What do you mean by that?
So that someone would be boosted up to, for say an assistant, $15. And then if they had been here for 5 years, they would have another 20 cents added on, say, for each of those years to reflect their seniority. So they wouldn't just be boosted up to say, we've got a new minimum starting wage at $15 an hour. That's where we're going to be hiring newly hired people. And you've been here for 5, 6, 7 years. We'll boost you up to the 15. For the folks that have been here a while, we should reward that seniority so that they're not just boosted up to where we're starting new hires.
I'm sorry, I'm not quite following you. So if someone were here, let's say someone is hired, or currently there, we move them up to 15 or any number.
Yep.
And then each year that person is going to get a salary increase. Predictable.
A new hire would, yes.
Yeah. So you're talking about, in addition to a standard increase, factoring in some kind of a.
No, this would be a one-time for existing staff. So say, for instance, we have a staff member who's been here for 7 years and is currently making $13.44 an hour.
Okay.
Well, moving them up to $15 an hour is an increase, and I'm sure they'll appreciate it. But the reality also is that
I got it. Everybody else is making 15, and that person's experience. Right. Okay, I understand.
So they would get a one-time boost to reflect the seniority,
and then
rather than just put them at
increases accordingly.
Yes, exactly. And actually, what I would one aspect of this suggestion very much is to let us get back to what we really had been doing, and I think doing pretty effectively 2019 and earlier, before the minimum wage increases started, which was really targeting for retention, key staff, and looking to reward best performers on staff. And what we've had the last couple of years instead is that needing to stay compliant with the minimum wage increases has been taking up a lot of our salary increase pool. Right. So if we boost ourselves up to that $15 compliance, then we get to go back to what we had been really targeting, which was, we're compliant again. We don't need to worry about this, until the next time that some increase happens for minimum wage. And we can just focus on, what was the performance? Who do we absolutely have to keep around? Who's our essential staff? Who's, really our top performers that has just done some amazing things in the last year, and that needs to be recognized. And, be certain that we are getting, the nice sizable increases that those things deserve. Okay. So those recommendations, and then I think we go ahead and we repost the library assistant position at $15 an hour. I think we'll see at least a bit better response to that without posting it. I'm getting a strong vibe and have heard a little bit from folks that with the job market as it is, posting something under that $15 an hour mark is tough going right now. People are just kind of not looking at them. So how would we make that happen? Well, that would be looking at the current full-time opening that we have. So we would, with that full-time position, take a look at either having other existing staff or potentially some of those responsibilities, having them outsourced. And instead of replacing that person with another full-time promotion or hire, that we would instead look to have just another library associate brought on. So instead of having somebody brought in at over 40 hours, that we would bring on somebody at 24. And then the difference there between you know, the compensation level for a full-time staff person with you know, all of the insurance and vacation, et cetera, benefits, and a library associate who still gets, you know, some benefits in sick and vacation time, but isn't eligible for insurance and those other things, and doesn't, you know, have that same full-time employee pay scale, has a more modest pay scale. You know, that difference between those two would allow us then to have the flexibility to make this salary adjustment. I have looked at the responsibilities as far as being able to make that shift. And, you know, I think that, you know, while we would give up a little bit of flexibility in some places that we've had with the current setup, that it's definitely doable. And I think also that the reality is that we've got challenges facing us here that we're kind of coming to a head at the moment, and that I think we've got to address, and that those are the most important critical ones to take a look at. And, you know, I think just staffing wise, you know, you can't hire everyone, you know, it rarely seems, you know, like it's going to be feasible to hire to the maximum effect, to have someone that's going to cover every, you know, nut and bolt. You've got to set priorities, and you have to, you know, determine where you're going to put most focus and greatest effort in terms of where resources are going to go. And, you know, I think looking at it from that perspective, I think it definitely absolutely makes the most sense. Use the flexibility that we have with the turnover in the full-time position, and bootstrap up the salaries at the bottom of our salary scale, and, you know, bring on a library associate to hire to cover those responsibilities that we can't cover internally, which are primarily technical assistant responsibilities and some desk time,
Eric,
especially on the weekend.
For someone working 24 hours a week,
Mhm.
you said first you said there were no benefits, and then you said there are some benefits, but there's no insurance. What are the financial benefits to an employee working 24 hours versus maybe 21 or 22? Where does that cut off?
The cutoff is the 20-hour-a-week mark.
Okay.
At 20 hours, usually that is not just for libraries, but for most any municipal organization in the state of Illinois, because of IMRF. That's when, per their rules, the participation in that retirement program kicks in. So for every person that we have on IMRF, there's a certain amount of money that we contribute to that retirement fund. And then a person working 24 hours, in addition to being a part of IMRF, would also receive vacation and sick time, as well as personal days. But that would be it.
And what's is IMRF a percentage, or how does that work? Is it a contribution that the employee makes as well, or is it something that just the library makes towards that?
It is a contribution that the library makes, that the employer makes on behalf of its employees.
Is it a percentage of, I
So
mean, how is it?
so
Well,
I'm making a
short
face
answer.
because it's complicated, and whenever I look into what the IMRF is calculating, it always makes my head hurt a little bit. But to try and summarize as much as possible, the IMRF folks work with local municipal organizations to set for each municipality a contribution rate that reflects the known current and near future benefits that are going to be paid out. So that for the village of Lake Bluff is Bettina. She's the point person for that. And she is the one that works with the IMRF folks, looking through that information and calculating out what our rate should be to make sure that we are continuing to cover our portion of the retirement fund. The nice thing with IMRF, not nice perhaps from a financial flexibility perspective, but definitely from a solvency, is that their rules are actually pretty rigid as far as what you have to pay in.
Yeah.
They don't let you skimp.
And you can't borrow against it, or the state
Yes.
cannot borrow against it. Yeah.
Which is why IMRF is pretty well funded.
Good. All right,
They are
I don't want you
not at 100%,
but
but they're pretty close.
yeah.
Which is
I'm just wondering if
great.
there's any cost-effective reason to look for an associate at 19 hours. I mean, if there's any cost savings of, if that's something that can be calculated to our advantage, or it's just not worth it. I don't know. Since we're kind of reorganizing the whole thing.
The responsibilities that we would have the person coming in to do would need in that 24-hour-a-week range.
Okay.
And whenever possible, I'm always very hesitant to try and hire somebody in a different pay range if that doesn't match the responsibilities that we're going to have them working.
Right.
That usually doesn't end well.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
So this, Eric, this is budgetary neutral, more or less, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And Kathy, I would mention, and only in a very vague way, because it would relate to a specific individual, the item that we had discussed, I did work in as well.
Okay. Good. So do you want to go on to your, I'm intrigued about hiring an outside professional.
Yes. So this was something that Jenny and I had discussed the other day, and it's something that I had been thinking about that we should really take a look at. An example of this, and the firm that I think most libraries in the area have worked with recently is HR Source. And basically what it would be hiring an outside professional. They would come in, they would take a look at salary history, salary scales, they would take a look at responsibilities. They would use professional tools that we don't have access to compare what we're doing and what we're paying to other libraries. So we do our best possible in-house analysis, and we've got some pretty good tools that are available to us through some of the surveys that happen here with North Shore libraries. But there's only so much information that is attached to those survey results, and they would have a lot more to work with. And they would be able to provide recommendations as far as how well we matched up, but also, where we ought to try to get to in order to continue to keep our positions competitive, and would provide a roadmap as far as how we can move things forward. They would also take a look at our the materials that tie in there as well, like our job descriptions and how those compared, and would make recommendations as appropriate in order to make sure that those were in keeping with, what was posted elsewhere. So I think it would be a useful exercise. It's not something that I would recommend. If we could only find somebody to come in for like $8,000 or $10,000 to do a big evaluation like that, that's not something that I would recommend. But I think if we go out and we take a look and get a few quotes for somebody to come in for an organization our size, from what I can glean from other libraries that have been through this process, we should be able to get somebody in, at a fairly modest rate, particularly for a worthwhile exercise that I think would help position us for success for the next 5 to 10 years. And that would be what this would really be about, would be positioning us for success in that time frame. This is definitely not one that would be something that you would revisit, with any frequency. You would want to work with a professional, get things set up so that you've got a plan and a roadmap for, a good number of years. And that should be a plan that would come with a certain amount of variability that you could make adjustments as needed. And that would be it. To my knowledge, we've never, had anybody that we've worked with as far as bringing in that outside HR expertise, looking at what we're doing.
So Eric, process
audit
question. I mean, would we do an RFP and get some bids and come back and ask and review those and then ask for a vote, or what's the process that you envision?
Yes, would be the short answer.
And can I ask something too?
Mhm.
Do you think it at all would be useful to, I thought it was great that the technology committee is going out and looking at other libraries and how they're doing that as well. Do you think it would be useful for our committee to also take a look at what other libraries are doing in the area, what their evaluation tools look like, and some of the other things that we're looking at before we try to bring in a professional?
I don't
I
know
think
that our
definitely.
evaluation process is going to lend much help in what Eric is talking about. And I think we're really kind of pushed to the wall in terms of creative salary approaches. And
Yes, and I'm sorry, Kathy, and I didn't mean it specifically in regards to the salary that what we're discussing here, but I think as the longer term goal, I think what Eric had sent out the evaluation tool, and we had just talked about, he said it hasn't been updated in a few years. So I guess, I'm sorry, I meant it as like a separate discussion than the salary discussion.
Okay, well, let's get to that in a minute or two.
Okay.
Yeah. Sounds good. Okay. So
I had a question. What's our
fire away.
What is our line item budget for professional services?
I can bring that up for you. Okay, October 2021. I am bringing up the revenue and balance report here to have the budget in front of me from the last board meeting. So I'll share over, in fact. Okay. Professional contractual. We had budgeted $5,000.
We haven't used like 9% of that. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Well, that gives us a
yeah,
start.
it's our expenses to this point this year have been pretty modest. If that continues, then it may be something that we could even take a look at doing this fiscal year.
Yeah.
If not, if budgetarily, we pick up some additional professional expenses, that particular goal, having a professional come in and work with us, is kind of not one that, I would look for us to make a move on like right now. That's probably at soonest within a couple months, at longest, maybe looking at the start of next fiscal year when the budget rolls over.
Well, also well in advance to, which would be the 22 levy discussion.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
And and this is an item as well, tying in with that I will be mentioning at the finance committee, that we'll dig into a bit more on that. But
Good.
coming at making the changes with the library assistant and library associate salaries is definitely going to take pressure off of the salary impact on the levy considerations, because it will let us get back to our usual discussions as far as how we were rewarding employees for what they were doing, and working on our retention for our core staff. Really we've gotten ourselves, as we've discussed, I know at some of the finance meetings, with having to try and do that along with boosting staff up to stay minimum wage compliant. That's been that dynamic has been the big driver that's put us in a salary pinch. But by removing the need to do those big boosts at the low end of the salary scale each year, and just getting back to the performance-based raises, that becomes a lot less of a headache, and a lot less of a gosh, we got to talk about this as we sit down and look at the levy. So I would recommend it as well from that financial perspective, that it would remove the stressor.
You're looking for a formal motion with regard to the salary increases?
I am not. I don't need a formal motion.
Okay.
The adjustments of the salaries and handling those with staff fall within the director's responsibilities as they're laid out.
Fine.
But the reason I'm talking to everybody tonight is that because it's a bigger change, because it's something that's going to tie in with other things that we're working on, I definitely wanted to get everybody's feedback and have this conversation with you. And if we had, it sounds like, John, that you're thinking that this sounds like a good plan, and that would be what I would be looking to hear.
Okay. Yeah,
and I was also very much looking for any questions that I couldn't answer, because I'm always keen to find those whenever I'm making a move on something. Find those sooner rather than later, so that you can find the answer. And if you guys had told me that this was just absolutely a no-go, then I would shift things a different direction. I always want to try and work as much as possible with the trustees.
Minimum wage, that ship has sailed. We need to catch up with that. So
yeah. I agree. Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm hearing then is that this looks like a solid plan as far as moving us forward. So I will move us forward as laid out.
That's good.
Okay. And then that will take us up to the next item on the.
Eric, just one quick interruption. You will appraise the finance committee Monday night of all this.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah, definitely. Because at some of the finance meetings that we've had, that's definitely been one of the big discussion items as far as how we're going to handle those budget lines moving forward.
Yeah. So
definitely. Okay. So then the next budget item was director's performance. This one might be the executive session that we'll want to jump into.
Okay, well, I had asked you to put it on the agenda, so let me give you my rationale, which may avoid an executive decision. It's up to
sounds good. I am.
I
I'm
just
always
wanted,
happy to avoid the paperwork.
I just wanted to remind, since Jenny's new to the committee, I wanted to remind everyone that there is, and Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, it's been an informal mid-year review. But I think it's entirely Eric's choice if he wishes a more formal mid-year review. But we try very hard to get this. We have struggled terribly with keeping the director review on time. And it is our goal to have it completed. Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, by April 30th or by May 31st.
April 30th.
Okay, so in order
End
to
of
do that,
April.
mid-year is about now. And it's very easy to just kind of kick this down another month and another month, and suddenly there's no mid-year, or it's a week before the final review. So if we're going to do a mid-review, I think it's a good time to do that. And it can be, depending on your recommendation as a committee, it can be just an informal chat. I'm happy to do it with Eric. We've done this in the past. We could just survey the board. Are there any questions or concerns? If it's more than an informal conversation, we'll make it that. And from Eric's point of view as well. Or we'll just, I can report back to the board, and that'll be that. And then we sort of get to Jenny's point, which has to do with the review process, which is far more deliberate, starting about the month of February. I kind of disagree with what I think I heard. Last year, we did a review for the director very differently than we've done in the past. We did a 360 review, which who am I thinking? Tricia Brockett managed for us. She has an experience in HR, and she really did a great job. We did this only for the director. We didn't do it for the rest of the staff. So I think that this committee's decision is what to do about a formal review process for the end of this year and going forward. So I kind of lay that back on you guys, but I want to make sure that you start thinking about it, because it's not something you can do right away. So that's kind of my thought. But I do want to stay on a timetable. I think it's very unprofessional of us to not be, without Eric's performance review, he really can't review his staff because he can't respond to problems that the board might be having with him. So it really puts the whole chain of command off. So we need to be responsible as far as our commitment to Eric. So that's all I wanted to say, Eric. So you can make decisions about executive session and so forth.
That sounds good. If we're not getting into the nuts and bolts as far as actual performance, and we're just discussing the procedure, then that doesn't need to generate the extra paperwork that goes with an executive session.
Yeah.
Kathy, you've been on the board long enough to know what how those executive sessions tend to propagate. Once you have one, then you have to have another one to discuss that executive session.
Yeah, that's right.
And so for my part, what I would throw out is that I have not I don't have any substantial concerns in terms of my ongoing working relationship, here and working with the board, that to me would suggest that an absolute need for the formal sit down mid-year. I think, Kathy, you providing the opportunity for other trustees to provide you with feedback and then having a sit down meeting with me would be sufficient. That's my feeling based off of where we're at.
John and Jenny, you can mull that over, or you can, however you guys want to handle it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you for explaining it to me, Kathy, because this is all really new for me.
Right.
So thank you.
Sounds good.
Okay. What I would suggest is I'll just, I think, unfortunately, I don't even know if we've all been in the same room. It's been such an awkward, ongoing situation. But I think our committees have gotten together enough that we've had enough exchanges with Eric and vis-a-vis one another that we have good feedback. So I'll just reach out to the board. And Eric, if you could refresh the board with your goals for the year, and it would be feedback regarding your goals, and reflections or comments or questions, and then you and I will meet on that.
Sounds good.
That's all I want to talk about on that.
Good.
So,
And Kathy,
Oh.
do you need any help with any of it?
no, I suspect this is going to be pretty straightforward. Thanks, Jenny.
Okay.
The big question is how you want to continue, how you want to go ahead with the director process. We've revised it over at least twice since I've been on the board. So, and if last year's could somehow be, I guess, take a good look at it, and it was pretty thorough. It's not
Pretty thorough. Yeah, it was thorough.
Yeah, and it's not a bad way to even work with department heads if we give ourselves time to develop it, which may not be this spring, but it's something that hopefully your committee will take a look at.
Yeah, last year's review was definitely a nice roadmap.
And I'll say from a trustee's point of view, it was not cumbersome, and I hope it wasn't for you, Eric, but it got a lot of information evaluated, and it was done especially during, major lockdown. It was quite a good sharing of information.
Yeah. Okay. So do we have any other items to add to the agenda?
Sneak one more comment, since we're talking about professional guidance and so forth. If Jenny, for you to share with your committee in no particular time, if we wanted to approach Tricia as far as, a mini training on how to do that kind of review.
Yeah.
That might be something that would be worth our while.
Oh, that'd be great. She seemed like she was really on top of things last year.
Well, she was
She was.
fantastic. She put this together. I couldn't believe how she put this thing together. So
Yeah, yeah, she seemed really good at that. So I'd love to reach out to her if that's okay.
Why don't you? Yeah, I mean, I don't overstep your committee, so you guys figure that out and maybe report back to the board in November and go from there.
Okay.
Do you have Tricia's contact information, Jenny?
I do. Yeah.
Okay. I figured you should, because all the candidates and all the trustees were all together for a few months there on the informational mailings.
Yeah, and she reached out after the election. She's very nice.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
good.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Okay. Any more other items? If there are no other items, then I would look for a motion to adjourn.
I
So
so
moved.
moved.
Yeah.
Second.
Yes.
Motion
Thank you.
from
And
Kathy. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
hi.
No problem. Have a great evening.
Great.
Thanks,
Thanks,
you
everybody.
too.
Right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.